Welcome. Everyone is here this evening except for Member Van Ray. He and his wife, Atur, welcomed their baby Adriel on Monday. Mother and baby are doing well. Mr. Van Ray has indicated that next time he will schedule his better to have a birth in the off week of council. Okay, confirmation of the agenda, that the committee adjourns the agenda for the meeting of November the 1st, 2023. Moved by Member DeRose, seconded by Member Oslich. All in favor? And the motion is carried. And that the committee, okay, any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. This evening, there are no delegations. Minutes from the previous Finance Committee meeting. That the committee adopts the minutes of September the 20th, 2023, Finance Committee meeting, noting no errors or omissions. A mover and a seconder to receive. Member Chapman? Member Rahi? Further discussion? All those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. And the first order of business. The report FIN 2623 respecting the 10-year capital budget be received as information, and that council acknowledge the proposed 10-year capital budget and describe work plan as presented, and that council approve the final 2024 capital and discretionary budget and approve in principle as presented to allow for initial tenders and procurement to occur in 2024, and that staff be directed to develop a plan for financing EECC and AIM Park capital works. Can we have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Member Chapman, Member Cookett. Okay, and the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you and to members of the committee, the report you have in front of you this evening shows capital and discretionary projects for the 2024 budget in consideration of $17.727 million, split between $8 million of approximately $8 million of carry forward projects for 2024, and the remainder, which is new projects for 2024. To summarize the new projects that have appeared on here since the last time we met, the outcomes of this facilities condition assessment for town hall and buildings have been refined. The ECC facility condition assessment has been added, and the total investment of the industrial park has been revised per the last report that Terry presented at $4.63 million. Other minor adjustments are the carry forward projects. Those will continue to change as we get implemented by year end. So this is the best estimate we have right now of carry forward amounts that have already been prior approved. So council may notice on the reserve graph that reserves are currently very high, but you'll see those balances normalize in 2026 to 2027. So keep in mind those reserves are made up of obligatory, restricted, unrestricted. So the restricted reserves are water, wastewater, as an example. So those pay for the debt for the water tower through user fees. They pay for the debt that we would incur for the optimization of the lagoons through user fees. Obligatory and restricted uses for projects for such as Elk Street would be paid through OSIF, development charges, and gas tax. Council also would have about remaining $2.3 million at the end of 2024 to spend on the rest of the projects that do not qualify in any of those other categories. So as an attachment at the end of this report, there's a funding strategy, estimated funding strategy for anything past 2024. The only identifiable unfunded projects for 2024 would be $1.9 million of the industrial park, which we had discussed in the last report, talking about sale of land in order to fund that part. And then as soon as the ECC board receives the capital plan for that, we can discuss a funding strategy for that. The debt amount funded is directly for the water tower. The grant amount funded on this report is directly also for the water tower. So the remaining $5.9 million would be coming from a combination of various reserves. The ECC capital will be presented to the board, as I mentioned. We were merely requesting council to approve this 2024 budget in principle so that we can start tendering projects that we were able to fund at this point only. If there are any projects that council wishes to discuss in depth, we have the entire team here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Member DeRosa.
Thank you. Heather, what is the projected tax levy increase right now for 2024 with the corrections made? Is there a difference, or is it the exact same still?
This capital budget will be funded from current reserves and current debt that's already in the original number. So nothing here presented will affect the tax levy at this point.
Good to know. Can I have a follow-up question for somebody else?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think this might be directed to Rob, but I'll go through the chair. The Optimus Park Ball Diamond, there's the $200,000 for 2023, which I know what that was, and I don't know if that's still continuing or what's going on with that. It's still in the budget. And then there's $65,000 allocated for 2024. Can you explain what's going on with those two budget items or amounts? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the third attachment, which is the 10-year capital budget projection. And I can see 2023 and 2024. Yes. And it's under operations parks.
I can probably actually answer that if through the chair to Catherine. So what I did was I included 2023 and I just froze it in gray just so you could kind of see some of the carry forward amounts. So we had approved 2023 budget with 200,000 in it. By the end of, that was included 150,000 for the Trillium grant funding, which didn't get approved. So we had the 50,000 that we had approved through council resolution to put towards the ball diamond. So 50,000 essentially was already approved in 2023, 65,000 showing up basically as a $15,000 carry forward, or sorry, $50,000 carry forward from 2023, and an additional 15,000 is incremental for 2024. So that project will need to be discussed with Minor Ball. I believe it's, haven't scheduled a meeting yet to finalize those amounts of, or what area they want to plan for, but we've estimated 65,000 that we could fund out of the Parks Reserve for Minor Ball, 50,000 of which you guys approved.
Thank you. That's just a miscommunication because I thought it was the 200 plus the 65. I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we doing?
Yeah.
265,000 there. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Member Cookett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment and a question, if I may. First of all, I really approve of the long-term strategy here. We have 5 elements that the capital budget is looking at in priority: the water tower, AIM, SCADA, I'm not sure which to pronounce that, the lagoon, and the Elk Street. Those are 5 very important items that Elmer needs to look at. Question, I guess. Heather mentioned that there will be nothing taken out of the levy to pay for the other $9 million that this budget asks for. It asks for $17.7 million. We've sort of financed about $8 million already, so that kind of leaves $9 million. That's a lot of money to take out of reserves. What's the plan to replenish the reserves, or what's left after we spend all this money?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So on that last page of the attachment where there's a funding, capital funding summary, basically we're starting with the $17 million. I think it's Appendix B, Owen. Attachment B. Next one down. Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're taking 5.3 million out of reserves, an additional amount out of DC reserves. The grants are funding 3.3 million. The debt's funding 4.1. Half of the EECC has to be funded by Malahide, which we have planned in here if the whole amount gets approved. Our funding portion of the EECC is in here as unfunded, because we need to strategize how to do that, and the 1.9 is unfunded. So then that balance carries forward for 2025, and as you see the amount for 2025, the unfunded amount grows as the years move on. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to get funding from OSIF and other sources, but it's just showing you how you're drawing down your reserves, what we are going to be drawing down the reserves by every year. So every year, that's why we're only asking for 2024 at this point, because we know that right now we have a lot in our reserves, and we know we have massive capital projects we have to outlay. We're not asking to essentially fund anything past that. So the strategy would be for us to start putting in as much as we possibly can back into reserves to close the unfunded gap for the remainder of this timeframe, whether it be from the levy in 2025, in 2024 for the 2025 budget, or from grant funding, or from OSIF. Once the OSIF numbers come in, these funding numbers will change. So we're waiting for a lot of those numbers still to come in before we're able to close the unfunded gap. So every year, we're going to be talking about through asset management plan, how much should we be putting away? The asset management plan's telling you probably should be putting about $3.5 million away. Well, that's completely unrealistic. That's every municipality has this problem. But we need to we need to be real about the fact that we do have that unfunded amount, and that we need to close the gap between the levy, the grant funding, prioritizing of the projects, having a shave and pay program, extending the life of our assets. So it's looking very shocking to you right now, but this is the real picture, and we have challenges that we're gonna work through together for the next couple of years in order to close these unfunded gaps.
So we haven't done the operational budget yet for right? So there'll be some elements in the operational budget that would be replenishing the reserves, is that correct?
Correct. So through you, Mr. Chair, we're keeping the amount static for the contribution to reserves as we did last year, except for the amount for the police that we had taken out last year. We're going to put that back in. So it'll be around $455,000 that will go back into reserves. That's historically what you guys have been putting away, between $400,000 and $450,000, which is better than nothing. But again, I mentioned we're putting away the bare minimum, but we're putting away what we can afford at this point. When we see some growth come on, we'll take that amount. We'll discuss taking that amount and putting that towards the reserves to fund these projects. We're talking about a gap that has happened over the last 20 years. Now these assets are all aged, they're all coming due at the same time, or the roads are failing at the same time. So we're kind of paying the price now, but we'll get caught up and we'll get back into shape.
Sure. If I may have one last comment about reserves.
Go ahead.
We get criticism from time to time about the fact that we have a lot of reserves, and it leads to perhaps a frivolous expenditure by councilors because we have so much money away. Certainly, this is an example that we're not using reserve funds for frivolous reasons. These are very important reasons, and we're spending the money we put away. Thank you.
If I may comment that this particular budget at 17 million and change for capital projects is certainly very ambitious. It does set the stage to ensure that Aylmer can enjoy that bright future that we all hope is just around the corner. In layman's terms, Heather, if I may, how can we assure the mindset of the folks in Aylmer that although it's ambitious, it's realistic, and they're not going to have to dig deep into their pockets to sustain this particular plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, basically the 10-year capital plan that we have now, I believe is, although evolving, I believe it's probably the best one we've ever come up with. Terry's actually got a lot of these estimates linked right down to the price of the asphalt. So as far as the plan we're presenting and the priorities, they may change as we're, investigating certain things. If the underground can last another 20 years and we can do a shave and pave, we're going to do that. But the life of the assets needs to be considered, and basically, we're funding everything that we can through the water rate study. We've set ourselves up by doing the water rate study, the wastewater study, the DC study. All those studies will feed into helping pay for this infrastructure, and so that it doesn't go entirely on the tax levy. I believe that we're prioritizing the growth, which is going to help us pay for this stuff through tax revenue. And then the residential taxpayers and the current industrial taxpayers, maybe we'll have a bit of a break in the next couple of years once we get through this bottleneck.
Okay, thank you. Do the committee members have other questions? Member Oslich?
Yes, your chair. But under facilities, under clock tower, does the $75,000 include the tree replacement?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to Member Oslich, we certainly anticipate that we will replace that tree. We've been in discussions with the engineer looking at some of the processes that would need to take place for the work to even start. I wouldn't say that it's explicitly put in that budget amount, but even if it's not funded through the capital portion, we would fund it through a parks budget, and we will replace that tree.
Further, we've taken the original tree out. It was a blue spruce, and we have to replace 2 trees. And one at the front of the town hall, and I propose one in the cenotaph.
The 2 trees for one policy, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would agree. Yeah.
Thank you, Member Oslich. Are there any other further questions? Hearing none, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. We'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Report CAO 6823, community grants. That report CAO 68-23 respecting the 2024 community grants be received as information, and that option to be determined of the staff report be endorsed for inclusion in the 2024 budget. A mover and a seconder, please. Member DeRose, Member Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report relates to community grants. As identified this August, the town's been dedicating substantially more funds towards community grants than a municipality of our size commonly does. The council established a very reasonable reduction to grants, setting the budget for 2024 at $55,000. So just to give the public an idea, that's less than an $8,000 reduction from the last year, so certainly an achievable reduction. Staff have provided a review of the applications to assist council in meeting their established target. We're also not at all opposed to council not awarding the full $55,000 amount if you so desired. Staff kind of look at our community and see other ones of our size expending between $20,000 and $30,000 annually on community grants. So spending, what amounts to 1% of a tax levy every year on this is a large outlay of cash for a community of our size. Certainly, though, if council does decide to continue to reduce grants politically, it might take several years to get there. It might also take a substantial policy update. That could be a policy update that kind of looks at this in the context of trying to rule out operational salaries or other items from the grant request program, or when there's an operational component or a salary component involved in a grant application, tying it to some new benefit, some new level of service to the community so that it's easier for council to justify from the previous year. So the evaluation really focused upon the requirements to meet a financial need within the grant policy. Staff certainly, in reviewing the Elmer Cemetery, they haven't demonstrated a financial need in their application. So certainly, council, there's options before you. Staff would be supportive of indicating that that application likely does not even meet the minimum requirements of the grant process, but it's historically has been awarded. So it's a tough call for council to make that, but certainly there is no real danger that they don't have sufficient reserves to carry on for numerous years without council grant funding. And you know, I say it somewhat jokingly, but they might be in a better reserve position than us after next year because we're drawing ours down. Staff also are suggesting that council may desire to hold back 50% of the funds from the Elmer Malahide Museum and Archives until such time as council receives an update on the sale of 14 East Street and the renovations of their new building. Council has committed a sizable contribution to the museum's new location, and previously the timeline communicated was that these renovations would occur in 2024. So it is appropriate to put some conditions on requiring an update to council before you release that whole amount if you so desire. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions of committee.
Thanks, Andy. Comments from the members of the committee? Council, or Member Osladge?
You notice Family Central, C, $5,000. What about the Family Central, rest of the?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Family Central receives a significant amount of funding through the tax levy already through CHIPPY funding, and also their application indicated that these funds would go towards staffing. And certainly, I think the biggest bang for our buck is when these items don't go towards staffing; they go towards actual provision of services. So,
Member Chapman?
The Knights of Columbus is rated B, and it's indicates that it's in a different municipality. However, soccer, Councillor DeRosie and I attended a seminar, I guess you'd call it, about helping our youth stay out of drug and alcohol addiction. And one of the big factors was getting them involved in sports. And even though this is not in our own municipality, our children use that facility. And the people that come and use that facility also come back into the town after the soccer games and make purchases in our community. So if I had to choose one that should be up in the A level, this would move up for me drastically. I just think that our youth don't have enough to do in our community, and soccer is not an expensive sport. It only takes a pair of shoes, and it helps to build team building. It helps to build self-esteem. And if we want to look to our future, our children are our future. And if we can help prevent them from getting into that drug and alcohol range, and if sports helps them to do it, I think that this is very much worth funding.
Member Cookett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to support what Member Chapman is saying about the soccer fields. Elmer really doesn't have a soccer field of any kind that can be used. This is a well-used number of fields supported by the Knights of Columbus in town. And so I would agree that it should be moved up to an A level in the future when we're thinking about funding of grants. So thank you.
If I may interject my thoughts, go by the soccer field any Sunday night and watch the hundreds of kids that are participating in soccer. It's awesome.
And it's not just Sunday night.
I realize that, but
It's
Sunday
many
is,
nights.
yeah, Sunday is supreme.
Yeah, so.
Good job on the part of the soccer people. Good comments. Member DeRosie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a comment regarding the ranking as well. A question that I have, first of all, like all community organizations, to me, have value within the community. So not to discredit a specific organization, but when going through the applications of these organizations, one that really stood out to me that was ranked a hot priority over top of the Knights of Columbus was the Elmer and East Elgin Agriculture Society, which was a high request for a application. Looking at their application, as Andy mentioned, when comparing, which one was it? The museum or the cemetery? Sorry, it was the cemetery. That they didn't demonstrate a financial need for their grant. The Fair Board was also equally not demonstrating a need for financial assistance. If they didn't get this request, it wouldn't, the fair and the tractor pull wouldn't cease to operate. They brought in a significant amount in profit in 2023. Their financial accounts are sitting quite healthy, a very healthy operating account. So to me, having a ranking of an A+, especially that, yes, it does offer community events, but that's to a fee to the citizens. The Santa Claus Parade, the fireworks, those are free programming to the community, but the tractor pull and the fair are things that the community have to pay for. So the fact that the community is paying for it through the tax levy and then also paying for it patroning the event, especially to an organization that isn't demonstrating a financial need for it, is just confusing to me.
Thank you. Further comments or suggestions?
For the Elmer and East Elgin Agricultural Society, I mean, Catherine's right, that Councillor Desrosiers is correct, as in they don't provide anything for free. People have to pay to have a booth there. They have to pay to have a food truck there. They pay to go and visit this event, whether it's the tractor pull or the fair. So it's a substantial ask compared to the ask of others. And it's nice to draw people to our community, because it does. It doesn't just draw them to the fair, but it draws them to other merchants and things. But it's a really high ask. So I would have no problem reducing. If we did agree to give them funds, it should be a reduced fund, because I would much rather support things like the lawn bowling that supports seniors, and it keeps the cost low so that the seniors can afford, and getting our seniors physically active is very important. Anything that relates to children is, again, supporting our future. So I would like to see, if we are going to support that one, see the number reduced. As far as the East Elgin Community Assistance Program, it's a program that feeds many, including children. So I have no problem supporting that program. When it comes to the Family Central, they support a select group of people, and we would be paying staff. So if we're going to support one or the other, I would like to support one that's offering support to more, including children. So that's my comments.
Thank you. This is the first year that we've had a definitive plan to scrutinize the various programs that are looking for assistance. We've come up with a strategy this particular year to make a slight reduction in the previous year's contribution in order to get an option on the floor. My thought at this particular time is perhaps to consider spreading the pain a little bit and choosing option number 3 for the committee's consideration. Member Rahi?
Through you, Mr. Chair, can it be option 3 plus an addition? Like, could there be something
With
else
the
added to it?
committee's approval, certainly. Do you have a thought?
I have lots of thoughts.
I'm sorry I asked that then. Go ahead.
Just like you said, spreading it out. I mean, it's, making cuts to this is not an easy thing to do because they do bring in a lot of good and you know, even the fair, you do have to pay to go do it, but they do offer a bunch of stuff like 4-H, you know, which you do have to pay to be in, but there is a lot of activities that that happen there. But to just axe a whole bunch of stuff, I think if we brought it down, you know, like brought down it, like did option 3 and then added, you know, maybe brought down the fair to a $5,000 grant instead of a $7,500 grant, or that would be, I guess, my.
On the same ratio that the other groups perhaps are being, the number that's being considered?
Maybe.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just quickly did the math on that. So if we were to add, the Fair Board to option 3, it would represent just under a $2,000 reduction for all 4 of them, for those 4 organizations being the Family Central, the Elmer Cemetery, and then the Elmer Malahide Museum and Archives, and finally the Agricultural Society. That would get us to the $7,900 reduction that we're looking to do and spread it with a $1,975 impact to those 4 requests.
Thank you. Member Oslich?
I would support that.
Member
I
Dorsey?
would also support that. It's a good suggestion. Councillor Rahi?
It seems we have a consensus to a modified option number 3.
And sorry, would committee consider at all the recommendation about, considering the recommendation about giving the museums in 2 stages so we can get kind of an update before council on their plan for the sale of 14 East Street?
Just
By nodding heads, it appears to be agreeable. Josh, could you just clarify that option then?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. So we would be proceeding with option 3, it being noted that the the East Elgin Agricultural Society is being added to that option number 3. That represents a total reduction of $7,900 or $1,975 for each of those organizations. And then further, council would be imposing a condition upon the Elmer Malahide Museum and Archives contribution. So we would issue them half of their total grant allocation, and then the remaining half would be issued following the museum providing an update on the sale of 14 East Street to the council, and also a status update on the renovation of their new facility located on Talbot Street East.
Thank you. Is that agreeable to the members of the committee? Okay. Are there any further comments? Okay, we have a direction then from the committee. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Are there any new business or inquiries by the members? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 7:33, and thank you for your input.
We'll
5-minute recess?
We'll
10
take a
minutes?
short
Come to order. Welcome, everyone, to this meeting of council. A special welcome to a new addition to the council family. I know that Deputy Mayor Barber talked about our new addition to the Van Rays family, so welcome, and certainly congratulations to William and Tua. Certainly to Tua, she was the one that did all the work, so congratulations. Next is a moment of reflection and respect. This is a good time to reflect on the importance of our volunteers, both past and present, and especially the volunteer work and health work of Dr. Duncan Sinclair. So rest in peace, sir. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 3, confirmation of the agenda.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of November 1st, 2023 as presented.
Mover and seconder, Councillor DesRosiers and Councillor Chapman. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There are no delegations or public meetings. Next, item 6, consent agenda, resolution.
That the November 1st, 2023 consent agenda be received for information, and that the council issue a letter for Elgin County's grant application to FedDev Ontario to support the development and implementation of an investment attraction strategy. And further, that council approves the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on October the 18th, 2023.
A mover and a seconder, put on the table, Councillor Oslach and Deputy Mayor Barber. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor is carried. Action item 7, a report for CAO 6623 strategic plan update. We have a motion.
That report CAO 6623 respecting a strategic plan update be received as information, and that the draft strategic plan be posted on the town's website for a period of public comment and be brought back to council.
Mover and a seconder, Councillor DesRosiers, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So staff are suggesting an expedited strategic planning process. This process is specifically focused upon identifying projects with timelines that council will receive routine updates upon. For a small municipality with lean staffing, we believe this might be our best approach. It avoids vague statements or jargon-filled materials in favor of tangible deliverables that can be tracked and measured. Staff are only able to recommend this because of council. This council came in at the start of this term, and you really hit the ground running. You endorsed large projects such as the Water Tower, AIM Park, and have undertaken significant public consultation and engagement upon parks, recreation, and our budget process. So staff believe that this council has an outstanding understanding of the issues and priorities of the community and continues to show agility and a high degree of unity and consensus in addressing them. Certainly that makes it possible to do an expedited strategic plan and to deliver the priorities that are and identify the issues of importance to council. Staff are entirely able to facilitate an in-house visiting session for council if that's the direction you desire to go in instead of this recommendation. We are, however, comfortable with council proceeding to post the plan for public review. I should note that thanks to council goes to council for establishing really a clear vision to staff for this term. Really, staff benefit from not engaging a consultant on this file because we understand your clear vision. So we, as the municipality, is saving significant funds by not engaging a consultant to come in and do a full strategic visioning process. And that's very much part of what, how staff operate on our understanding of council's unstated direction, that you would prefer us to save money on consultants in areas where we can and where we aren't going to get a huge advantage from utilizing them. I would note that this will be brought back before council again prior to adoption, so there is going to be another opportunity for council to review the strategic priorities and update them and make any changes to staff's recommendation. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions council might have.
Council. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. My feeling is that the strategic plan was well conceived at its commencement, and that any document needs an update on a regular basis, and for staff to undertake that project at this particular time and bring it back to council and with public input is very appropriate.
Anyone else? I just want to comment that I really approve of the approach of using strategic objectives that deal with projects rather than large kind of amorphous statements in terms of pillars. So projects are a lot easier to kind of measure, and I think it's a great way to go. And you see the list of projects there that accompany the report by Andy. So thank you very much. Seeing no other hands, all those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 7.2, the East Elgin Community Complex Parks Coordinator Report. I have a motion for that.
That report, Rec. 323, be received for information, and that council waives the fee to the BIA for the band shell committee room rental for the annual lighting of Palmer Park.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ronnie. The report.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I believe this is a fairly standard request that's received annually for the lighting of the Palmer Park to waive the fee. Just on another note here, these requests seem to be rather, I would classify them as sort of administrative in nature. They're very small requests. In fact, when I review the policy, I see where the criteria has been laid out, and in fact, there's a section for either the CAO or the director to simply waive the fees. But I can't see anywhere where the authority has been granted to either Andy or myself. And I'm certainly, if it's at a bylaw, we don't have the authority to circumvent a bylaw. So if council wishes to consider or wishes to keep seeing these requests come in, we can certainly do that. Or if this is something that council would like to delegate down to the administrative level for these types of requests, we could accommodate that as well. But certainly these reports are pretty straightforward and don't typically generate a lot of a conversation at council. That's why I bring it forward.
Right, thank you, Rob. I was thinking the same thing when I was looking through the request here. I thought we had something in the bylaw that gave the authority to the CAO and director, but if we don't, I think we should in the future have that added to the bylaw because it makes a lot of sense and not to encumber council with something that is a low-level request like this. It's great. Any comment from council? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only comment that I would have is when staff make those decisions, that council be aware of the direction.
That there would be a report from director when that happens, certainly. Yeah. All right. Okay, great. The lighting of the lights is a great start for the Christmas season, and I'll be emceeing that event, so I hope I see you all there. Thank you. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Director of Operations, the contract award for pool condition assessment. We have a motion.
That report, Operations 2823, entitled Contract Award, Pool Condition Assessment, be received for information, and that the council accepts the proposal from Aqua Plans Aquatic Consultants Incorporated to complete a condition assessment as outlined in their proposal.
We're in a seconder. Councillor Chapman, Deputy Mayor Barber. Rob, you're doing the report?
Thank you, Your Worship. We wanted to bring an opportunity before council tonight. While we were reviewing the 2023 operational budget, we noticed that there are some funds remaining in our pool maintenance budget, and we had already started the work of looking at the pool assessment to make sure we do any upgrades or improvements at the pool in sort of a timely manner. We do have some money left in our maintenance budget that would fast-track the pool assessment to get those budgets and estimates and work back to council in a timely manner so we could move forward at council's direction once you receive that report. So we're recommending tonight that we proceed with the work in 2023 with the Aqua Plans Aquatic Consultant. The consultant has met on site. He understands the scope of the work, and he has assured me that he can bring that report back before council before the end of the year.
Okay. Council, questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Riley. Go ahead.
When that report comes back, or when we know what's going on, it would be, like, we could prioritize, and would there be, I guess my question would be, would there be enough time to do some of that work before the pool opens next spring? Like, get, like, ballpark, I know it's hard to, when you don't know the length of the work, but.
Through your worship, that would be the intent. I would bring the report, the assessment back to council with a report identifying short, maybe long-term goals and how we're going to fit it into the season, or which work we take on, which work we delay, and how it fits in with our service provider as well with their schedule.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Is carried. Thank you. 7.4, Director of Corporate Legislative Services, drainage petition resolution.
That report, Clerk 5323, entitled Petition for Drainage, 751 John Street North, is received for information, in that Spreed Associates Limited be appointed to prepare an engineer's report for the petition pursuant to Sections 5 to 8 of the Drainage Act 1990 as amended.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Roselach, Deputy Mayor Barber. Josh.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and two members of council, since receiving a complete application for drainage, so drainage petition, the town's required under the Drainage Act to appoint a drainage engineer to prepare a drainage report, and ultimately this will allow council to address the request. This is really a statutory process that we've laid out in the staff report here in consultation with the Township of Malahide Drainage Superintendent, who initially had spoken with the applicant. Initially, there's a little bit of confusion as to which municipality would process the application. Ultimately, we determined that it was the responsibility of the town. So again, in accordance with the Drainage Act, staff are recommending appointment of a drainage engineer to prepare an engineer's report for the petition pursuant to the Drainage Act. And I will note that the costs associated with this report would be borne by the applicant. Ultimately, we had reached out to the town's engineer, GM Blue Plan, to determine if they were capable of preparing this. They recommended that we work with Spreet and Associates, given that they've done the majority of the drainage works in this area. So again, I don't have a ton of technical information at this point as far as the application goes. That'll be prepared by the engineer in their report, and council can expect to hear back with additional information on this file in the months to come. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Item 7.5, Director of Corporate and Legislative Services, candidate expenditures, resolution.
That report, Clerk 5423, entitled East Elgin Community Complex Canada Day 2024 Expenditure Approval, is received for information, and that council approves the allocation of $10,000 It being noted that it would be $5,000 from both the Township of Malahide and the Town of Elmer for the East Elgin Community Complex to host the 2024 Canada Day celebrations, as recommended by the EECC Board Resolution Number 3923.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Rahi and Councillor Chapman. Council, questions? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. We missed out on any grant applications or any grant funding last year. Are we better positioned this year to put something in?
Through your worship, yeah, the grant application, I believe, is due the 22nd of November. I have seen the first draft. We hope to have it in the next week and a half. We're just wordsmithing it currently.
Anyone else? Councillor Chapman.
Just to comment, this event is attended by many, and it's one of the few things that all our community attend. When I say all, I mean all walks of life. It's very well received, and it's very much aimed at the children, and that is fantastic. So I very much support this.
Thank you for that comment. I agree totally. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Director of Corporate and Legislative Affairs, Services, the Old Town Hall, a roundtable discussion resolution.
That report, Clerk 5523, entitled Old Town Hall Roundtable Discussion, is received for information, and that the council endorses the planning of a future roundtable discussion for user groups and interested community members regarding the Elmer Old Town Hall, it being noted that a follow-up report will be provided to council for their future deliberation.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Rahi. Questions or comments? Well, first of all, we'll deal with the report.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and two members of council, I just want to start in noting that longstanding community and user groups and volunteers have played a major role in the management and strategic direction of the Old Town Hall throughout past decades. It's a facility that we're very proud of and that a lot of people are very familiar with. And I think where we're coming from is, while this approach has been very successful, what we're really hoping to do is leverage the knowledge that those local community groups have. And we're hoping that by formalizing it, the town of Elmer can help to improve the communication, enhance facilities staff's ability to be responsive to user group feedback. And we're hoping that ultimately this leads to more desirable outcomes related to the facility. And I think part of the timing of this report has to do with some of the results that we've seen, just respecting the condition of the facility. There are some major decisions coming down the pipeline that the council will be required to make, and we're hoping that by providing feedback from these key stakeholders that we're giving council all of the information to make good decisions in the future. And again, by establishing these roundtable discussions, they're somewhat less formal than a committee would be, but really what we're doing is soliciting that feedback. Staff would prepare kind of a background presentation. Any members of council would be welcome to attend these sessions or the session. And ultimately, we would summarize the information that we've received and bring it back to council and have it form part of the discussion leading to those future capital projects. And with that said, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor Rosier.
Just a comment, I think it's a fabulous idea.
Agreed. Anyone else? Where do we find a round table? No comments or questions? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. New business and matters of urgency. None. The reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon. Resolutions.
That council gives 3 readings to and approves the following bylaws. Bylaw 6523, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Elmer and Tenant Security Group Incorporated to provide services for the enforcement of bylaws and provincial offenses and appoint the staff of Tenant Security Group Incorporated as municipal bylaw officers. Bylaw 6623 being a bylaw to authorize and regulate the planting, care, maintenance, protection, and removal of trees on municipally owned right-of-ways, parks, and lands located within the boundaries of the town of Elmer, and otherwise this is known as the Town of Elmer Tree Management Policy. Bylaw 6723 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the corporation of the Town of Elmer and New Day Excavation Incorporated for Elmer Industrial Manufacturing Park construction. And finally, bylaw 6823 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on October the 18th, 2023.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber and Councillor Oslach. Questions or comments on this? I have one question, because there have been a number of people who've been concerned with the age-old problem of parking, especially on Ann Street and Jane Street. And this bylaw, the tenant security group, the person that's hired for this, we do instruct that they look at those particular areas of town, correct?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. We also have a forthcoming parking bylaw amendment that council will see on November 15th that I expect will give Tenant Security Group some additional tools to work with for resolving those issues.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Are there any inquiries by members? Councillor Oslach.
Yes, Your Worship. To Rob. London is rolling out a green bin program, and it starts in January. And is there any chance that Elmer can piggyback on London's program? We did it on the Murph with London in 2012.
Rob, I can probably answer that. I've been involved last year with a group discussing shared areas with London's Middlesex County was discussing combining bulk tonnage and sending it on to London when they got their green bin program started. So there are discussions occurring. I did at the time discuss it with the CAOs of Elgin County. Now, there has been a lot of change in CAOs in Elgin County, so there's a lot of different players, and I haven't brought it up there again. But at the time, Elmer was the only municipality interested in it, and that's understandable because a lot of the rural areas do, farm properties do compost on site. So standing alone, Elmer probably wouldn't have sufficient tonnage, but there was a proposal to consider putting a waste transfer station in between, somewhere in Oxford County, in between us and London, where if we could find another partner to get the tonnage up, we could look at a green bin program, and all we'd have to do is transport our materials to that transfer station. But certainly I haven't had any discussions with it since then, but I will reach out to LAS. It's been involved in kind of facilitating the different municipality groups and see if there is any interest in it. And I'll certainly raise it again with some of the other CAOs in Elgin County to see if anybody else is interested in pursuing such an option.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Anyone else? Statements and committee reports? Councillor Oslach.
Veteran dinner is on Saturday night at 5:30, and the tickets still available at the door. And Remembrance Day on the 11th, on the Saturday, a week from Saturday. And 9:15 at Springfield, and 10:30 at Elmer.
Good, thank you. Anyone
We
else?
form up at 10:30.
Sorry?
The Remembrance Day service starts at 11 o'clock.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Report of the mayor. I do have a bit of a report. First of all, the town has been concerned, especially this year, with helping out with the shortage of doctors. There's a number of items that we have done. I would like to thank Andy for being the lead in terms of arranging delegations with the ministers during the last Association of Municipalities of Ontario convention. Some people wonder what goes on at conventions is whether or not they're useful when people go there, but certainly this was very useful for the town of Elmer because Andy did organize 3 different delegations, one for doctors, one for children, forgotten the word. Daycare, and the other one dealing with boundary disputes. But I want to deal with the health. We met with the Minister of Health at AMO, Minister Sylvia Jones, who we had a great discussion with, and she promised a follow-up in terms of helping with a doctor shortage and nurse shortage and that kind of thing. And she was good to her word, and in fact, we were contacted to meet with the director of one of their divisions in the Ministry of Health, the Nurses and Professional Practices Division. And we met with that last Monday, I think, just a couple of days ago, I think. And it was a very productive discussion in terms of getting some help for our local family health team in providing nurse practitioners in the Stratfordville area. As you probably know, the nurse practitioners that are attached to the family health team here in Elmer, one of them goes to Stratfordville a couple of days a week, and the nurse practitioner can see all kinds of people who are not rostered. So what this really helps. They've seen thousands of them, in fact, but it kind of depletes the ranks here. So there was a proposal by the local health team to get a couple more nurse practitioners paid for by the government. And this meeting with this division, I think, will help that, hopefully, so that we would have, a number of people who don't have doctors, especially in the eastern part of the county, and certainly in Elmer as well, who have more nurse practitioners to see. So I just wanted to pat ourselves and then pat Andy in the back for the fact that we have a doctor shortage in this area. Okay. Notice of motion. Is there a notice of motion?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas the Ontario government has acknowledged an affordable housing and housing supply crisis, communicating a targeted approach to build 1.5 million homes by 2031, and whereas nearly 1/3 of Ontario households rent rather than own, according to the most recent 2021 Census of Population, and whereas the Ontario government has reported that Ontario broke ground on nearly 15,000 purpose-built rentals in 2022, a 7.5 increase from 2021, and the highest number on record, with continued growth in 2023. And whereas the Residential Tenancy Act 2006 provides for a maximum a landlord can increase most tenants' rent during a year without the approval of the Landlord and Tenant Board, and whereas the Ontario government recently strengthened protection for tenants with the intention of preserving affordability by holding the rent increase guideline for 2024 to 2.5%, well before the average inflation rate of 5.9%. And whereas the rental increase guideline protection does not apply to rental units occupied for the first time after November 15th, 2018, leaving an increasing number of tenants susceptible to disappropriate and unsustainable rent increases compared to those benefited from legislated increased protection. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Elmer request provincial consideration for amendments to the Residential Tenancy Act 2006 to ensure that all tenants benefit from protection intended to preserve affordability. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Honourable Paul Kellerden, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Honourable Rob Fleck, Associate Minister of Housing and Ontario Municipalities, and Ontario municipalities.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Barber. This motion will come up at the next meeting of council. Thank you. Okay, there is no meeting closed to the public, and so we have a resolution to adjourn. Mover and seconder. Councilors Rosier and Council Rahi. All those in favor? As carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.